And I think that sometimes when we talk about entrepreneurship, we forget this idea of intrapreneurship. There's these chances you have where you don't have to go start your own thing. You can think about the role you have in the company you're at and ask yourself the question, well, how could I be an entrepreneur with the responsibility that I have in this position? And you could go and create a new program or a new way of doing things. And that experience is going to be what gives you the confidence and the network of people that trust you to go and start your own thing.
Welcome to another episode of Young Entrepreneurs with the Green Roof Team. My name is Nelson Fernandez, your host, and today we're joined by the co-founder of Storry, Connor. How are you doing today, Connor?
I'm doing so good, Nelson. I'm so excited to be here. This is awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show. Before we begin diving in, where are you living right now? Where you're at?
So I'm out in Salt Lake City, Utah, home of the 2002 Olympics, the best snow on earth. That's where I'm out at, man.
Sweet. Yeah, I was actually in Salt Lake City a couple months ago. Beautiful place, beautiful mountains. I can just imagine after working throughout the day or even going on weekends, just hiking and just getting a clear mind.
Yeah, no, that is some of my favorite things to do. I mean, I feel like whenever you're trying to build something meaningful, if you're doing that entrepreneurship grind, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and get disconnected, and to be able to escape to the mountains and remember that there's something bigger going on than you is awesome. So I love being around here.
Sweet. Okay, so getting today's episode kicked off, Connor, could you give the audience a little premise or a snipping on what they can expect for today?
Yeah, so a couple things that I'm really excited to talk about is I want to talk about Storry and what we built, and not because I think Storry is something that necessarily your entire audience is going to care about, but because I think the journey of how we built Storry is going to have some valuable things that hopefully some of your audience finds interesting. I want to talk a little bit about why networking was so important there, mentors, and finding people that can help guide your journey and give you the right information to build the right thing is so important. I want to talk about how, if you're just starting to be an entrepreneur, let's say you're still in school or just fresh out of school and trying to figure out where you want to take your career, how a personal brand is going to help you no matter what you do. And then building an MVP, building that minimum viable product. How do you create an idea or sell an idea or sell an investor on an idea so that you can go and build something with your own idea out? And then just advice, things from when I was in school, things that I wish someone would have told me, so that after school I could have kind of got a little bit more of a head start. So that's what I'm kind of looking forward to talking about with you today, man.
Sweet. I'm excited to hear more about it, and I know the audience is also. So kicking it off, who is Connor? Who are you?
Yeah, so I'm Connor Snyder. I'm the co-founder of Storry, which is a marketing technology company. And our mission is to help people share their authentic message online. And we do that by we build an app which basically gives AI-driven prompts of content to create. You just say the topics you want to be known for or have influence in, and then we give you a hook, we give you an outline, we give you an outro of the video content to create, and you give us that raw content, and we have an army of video editors who turn that into engaging social media content to help people build online relationships and share their message. And when I'm not working on that, I'm hanging out with my dog Goose. My dog Goose is a German short hair pointer. He's a hunting dog, but I don't hunt. So he's a little bit, he's having a bit of an identity crisis because I just play fetch with him all day. And then hang out with my girlfriend. She's also into social media and ads, and so we nerd out on stuff all the time. And then I'll grind that Call of Duty once in a while too if I got time. So that's what I'm doing. That's Connor, man.
Sweet. So what was your journey like to get to Storry? Because I'm a big believer of not only seeing the end result, but what was the journey? What was the process to get you there?
Yeah. Sheesh, man, that's a big question. It's funny because getting to where we are now has been the culmination of a bunch of little things. And it's funny to look back in time because you've got the advantage of hindsight. And so you can see, oh, doing this led to this. And I look back and I think about just even being in high school and like just messing around on Facebook. Like I remember my parents had come into like the office where we had like our family computer, and I would like spend like 2 hours goofing around on social media, and they'd be like, get off of there. You need to go and study. You need to do your homework. You're never going to make money, you know, messing around on social media. And I'm like, well, look at us now, mom and dad. Right. And I think that that's one thing that is important to know about yourself is like, what are the things you find interesting? What are those things that you kind of gravitate towards? Because whenever you're trying to build something, you've got to have enough passion and interest in it that when there's the crappy days, there's the days where you're like, I cannot do this for another second, that there's a deeper kind of motivation or interest that pulls you through it. And so I think early on, I've always loved tech. I've loved the power of what social media could do. I've been fascinated by what a world changing thing it can be to have everyone in the same pace, both in really positive ways and also really negative ways. And knowing those things and understanding and studying those things is totally a passion of mine. And so I think it started there for me. And you know, another thing I think that I learned early on was grit. And I don't know if like grit's this like word that gets tossed out, and I think understanding it and defining it as this tenacity to work through even the shittiest parts of situations is an important thing to develop in ourselves, because life is tough. I can't remember the philosopher who said it, but he said that life's like pushing a boulder up a hill. And it's just like you get up every day and push that boulder up, and you got to have enough grit to do that. And I learned grit when I was a Mormon missionary. So I was raised Mormon. I'm not Mormon, a practicing Mormon anymore, but I was raised Mormon, and I did the whole Mormon mission thing where, you know, you got your white shirt on, your black name tag. And I was knocking doors as a Mormon missionary in California. And I don't know about you, Nelson, but you probably are not like begging for the Mormon missionaries to come by your house and sit down with you, right? Like no one's waking up today like, today's the day I'm just gonna have them over, you know. And I was on the receiving end of that, you know, like I was the guy that got the door slammed in my face and like told like, dude, leave me alone. And what that does is it teaches you this grit of like, whoa, like I get told no a lot. and you also get to meet a lot of people, and even though it was like this spiritual proselyting thing I was doing, what it kind of taught me was salesmanship. You know, like being able to like talk to somebody about something as personal as spirituality really made it easy to feel like I could just open my mouth and talk about anything with somebody. And so I think that learning grit, I'm definitely not saying everyone should go be a Mormon missionary. You know, everyone's got their thing. But like, I think finding those situations that you can challenge you and put you in uncomfortable spots is another thing that I think I was able to learn early on to help us get to where we are now.
Cool. I love hearing about that own side of it, having that grit, that challenge that you had to overcome, and from that challenge, it kind of just allowed you to grow in so many different ways.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing, you know. And so, you know, after I was done being a missionary and I went back to school and was studying marketing and studying Chinese, I was working at like on campus for the MBA program at Utah State. And so I wasn't in the MBA program. It was just like an on-campus job. And I don't know if you've ever worked like on-campus jobs, but they rule. It's like flexible with your schedule. They're like, oh, you got class, go, whatever, you know, like cut out early. It's like so low key. So I was working on campus in the MBA office. And again, social media nerd, tech nerd. I was like, you know, if you want MBA students, especially if you want them straight out of their undergrad, you should be like running ads on the places where they spend their time, which was social media. And they'd never done social media ads before this. So they let me have a little budget and I started running ads on Facebook, and I learned that, hey, this actually works. And I got to like dive into like the techie side of marketing, and it was also with my interest in social media. And so it was like I kind of found this like opportunity to take the things I was interested in and apply them to the job I was in. And I think that sometimes when we talk about entrepreneurship, we forget this idea of intrapreneurship. You know, there's these chances you have where you don't have to go start your own thing. You can think about the role you have in the company you're at and ask yourself the question, well, how could I be an entrepreneur with the responsibility that I have in this position? And you could go and uh, create a new program or a new way of doing things, and that experience is going to be what gives you the confidence and the network of people that trust you to go and start your own thing. And so I started running those ads, getting some results, and all of a sudden we're getting new MBA applications. And then I decided, hey, I think I could get a full-time job in marketing from doing this. And that's what I did. I went and joined a solar company, and it was all because I just decided I'm going to be an entrepreneur first, and learn a skill that's in line with my passion. And people saw that I could make a difference for them.
Cool, awesome. So when you began seeing undergrad students and new MBAs coming in, how did that make you feel? Did you feel that fulfillment out of it from seeing like, oh, these ads are working and they're converting people over?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best, right? Like we did, I mean, I'm sure like when we were first doing stuff with the Green Roof team, when you guys first put a prototype together, I'm sure you're like, holy shit, it works. This is amazing. Right. And that's how I was, when I started running the ads, because someone's like, here, you get $500 a month, which at the time, I've done ad spends that are 100 times more than $500 a month. But at the time, like $500, like, dude, this is my rent for the month. Like this is a lot of money. And so to get that trust to run with that and then get results from it, yeah, it felt amazing. And that's the kind of someone told me that confidence is the result of consistent action with favorable results. And I think that that's something that you gotta remember is you got to keep taking shots until you feel like you've developed a skill, because that's where your confidence to be an entrepreneur is. And being an entrepreneur is it's not all roses and mai tais on the beach.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I know, like pulling from my own experience of being a long distance runner, it's better to run a little every day and or a medium every day than run like 3, 4 times a week because that
Mm-hmm.
consistency builds up and then you build a stronger base. You begin pulling in all these new tools. Next thing
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're unstoppable. And then you begin seeing the wins, all the small wins. It's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Very cool.
So, thinking about grit and consistency, how did
Mhm.
that help go into Story?
Yeah. So I had a coworker of mine that I was working in a mortgage company, and one day he was like, "Dude, we should go start our own thing. Like, you've got technical know-how," and he's like, "I've got the network, so let's go and start something." And one of the things I think is very important, especially when you're early in your career, is we all want to be the people that like change the world. And you've got to recognize that to have a big impact, you have a team. Like I don't think there's many people on the list of like people that changed the world that did it completely 100% on their own. And so you've got to be self-aware enough to know what are your strengths and weaknesses. A strength of mine is I am a total nerd. Like if I will nerd out on whatever, like I just like, it doesn't matter if it's social media. It doesn't matter if it's, learning Chinese. It doesn't matter if it's Pokemon, like I'll nerd out, and if you are not aware of your weaknesses, where my weaknesses are, I don't like doing sales. Like I don't like being the guy that's pounding the phones. My buddy, he loves pounding the phones. He loves doing sales. He's not a nerd. It's just like he's like allergic to it, right? So you've got to figure out who are the people you should partner with that can round out your weaknesses and can supplement and amplify your strengths. And so that's what we did is we started the thing, and I started it with him because I knew he was the yin to my yang. And Storry was started out as just being a marketing agency. It was just like the culmination of all the skills that we had developed, and we kind of were just consultants. And I think that's a very common path for entrepreneurs, especially in the creator world we live in now. You can build a personal brand around the things that you know, and people will hire you to come help them solve problems just based off of your expertise. And if you do enough consulting like that, eventually you start to see a common enough problem that you can build a product around it. And then that product can then be something you go and sell on its own, independent of just your own name.
Sweet. And just like taking a step back, I like the way that you're describing yourself and your co-founder. It makes me think about when you build a team, especially a startup, you have the visionary, the hustler, and the hacker. Have you
Mhm.
heard about that before?
Yeah. Yes, yes. Yeah, my partner said I was the visionary, so I like, I like, we all love to say we're the visionaries. I'm going to cite him to say I'm the visionary. But you're right. Like, you've got to have the right team put together of what is everyone on your team going to kind of the role they're going to play. I think that model you're talking about, I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, like, is that how you assembled your team? Were you kind of like looking for people to fill those hats?
Actually, no. The way that went about our end was since we had 2.5 years working together as a team, it
Mm,
was more about I wanted to pick out people from there that I thought that would be a good fit for the business, mainly
mm,
from a cultural standpoint, from a trust side, because
mm,
everyone that was with us, like, um, we were so like versatile, I would call it, that we could wear different hats. But when it come down to as people have day jobs and they're still in school, how can they handle the extra responsibility and do they have that trust level to be able to be accountable? And then we
mm.
kind of just meshed along and came across like, oh, this person's good more on the sales side. This person's better at the marketing side. This person can help build the roadmap. So we did a little bit backwards, focusing more on trust and then building it that way.
No, that's cool. I mean, it all comes together backwards more often than people like to admit. Like, it's so easy to be like, here's the theory of how it should come together, and then the mess of it actually coming together is not always as pretty, right? Um, but yeah, I think for us, as we kind of focused on building a team, uh, we kind of looked to the Netflix kind of model, and their model was like core values first. You hired a core values and you fired a core values, and so we kind of like worked with our partner and like defined what are our core values. The most important of which for us was candid communication. So I don't know if like you're like a Brene Brown fan or not. I love Brene Brown. I think she's awesome, and her whole thing is authenticity in the workplace. And candid communication is trying to like epitomize that. It basically is the meaning is you say what's on your mind and trust others to say what's on their mind and expect that of each other. And we've tried to build a culture in our team where it's not the CEO up top being the dictator and what he says is the highway. We've kind of developed this language of IPOV, individual point of view, and when we go into a room, it's like, look, here's my IPOV, it's my individual point of view. I reserve the right to change my mind, given more data, but this is how I feel at the moment based off the information I have. And when we communicate this way, very intentionally and with this expectation of candor, what happens is we actually get feedback back from the rest of our team. Like, the shy person on our team feels comfortable criticizing the boss's idea because we, from the top down, really emphasize that there's no idea that can't be challenged. And that's one of our core values, right? And we try to like make them more than just like vinyl stickers on a wall or like something that's on like a sheet when someone starts for their first day at Storry. We talk about them all the time because the values are what helps us accomplish our end mission.
Cool. Yeah, I love hearing about the candid communication, having that not only top down process, but that bottom up, just be able to help match the team all together. What other core values do you guys have?
Yeah. So another core value of ours is craftsmanship, right? Like that when you are responsible to build something, that you care about your craft, that you're always looking to improve your craft, that you value quality. And at the same time, we have another core value that's drive. That you you value action over inaction, that you want to move quickly. And with that balance of craftsmanship and drive, the hope is that we move quickly to build quality things, right? Um, we also respect. That's an important one, especially with candid communication, because candid communication isn't me saying, "Hey, Nelson, you're a shithead." Like, that's not candid, right? That's just being an asshole. So you've got to have candid communication, because the respect value of, we value our team members, we value the insights that other people have. That also has to be part of the equation. And so we hire to these things and we fire to these things. If someone is not candid, if someone is not respectful, if someone doesn't value craftsmanship, if someone doesn't have drive, then they're not part of the culture that we value. And we shout out and recognize our teammates for these things, because they're things that we value in ourselves and aspire to in ourselves.
Sweet. So for someone just like starting out a new business or getting to the idea phase, do you have any advice for them on how they can craft and determine what their team's core values are?
Yeah, so I think one thing to think about with core values is, core values isn't necessarily the things you want to be, it's the things you are. And that doesn't, like, so one example, one of our core values is not punctuality. I'm not punctual. We're not very punctual as a team. It's just not a core value. It's just not, we're going to do our best, but it's not a core value. And so you've got to recognize, what are the things that we aren't, because you can't go to your team and be like, there is an expectation here that everyone has drive. When, if your culture isn't everyone to have drive, then you can't have that expectation of each other. It doesn't mean you're perfect in those things. You want to aspire to them, and you want to encourage each other to have them, but you also can't fake them. They can't be 100% aspirational. Otherwise, when you tell people that's your culture, they're going to be like, no, that's not your culture. That's your sticker on the wall. No one here does that. It's got to. So I would say, if you're trying to identify those in yourself and your team, even if you're a team of two, you can go right down your culture and be like, you know what? We are innovative. We are creative. And you could go and write those things down and define them as you both see them. And then when you're bringing more people together on your team, you can say, like, look, me and, Nelson and Connor, we really value creativity. And we think you value creativity too. And that's why we want you on the team. And it can kind of be this filter of who's the right fit and who's not,
Sweet. I like the way that you put it in. It's who you are, not who you want to be. And it's not a sticker on the wall. I can't tell you how many times I've seen stickers on the wall and people are like, "Oh yeah, that's just there. It's a placeholder or it fills space."
Yeah, I know. It's funny. Like, it's like everyone read the book about like core values, and then like everyone like put up the sticker and then like didn't talk about it anymore. And that's one of those things where I just feel like we have to live and breathe them, otherwise they don't matter.
Cool. Okay. So diving more into something you mentioned earlier about your co-founder and having a network.
Mhm.
Can you talk a bit more about like what the network was, how it helped you, different ways you leveraged it, and maybe people involved and what skills they brought in?
Yeah. So some people have bigger networks than others. And this is a function of a whole bunch of things. It can be a function of individual personality. It can be a function of where someone came from, what their family's socioeconomic class was. Like, people just have different networks. And the reasons why are less important in terms of being an entrepreneur than that they are just exist. And so as an entrepreneur, what you have to look at is, okay, who has the network and how can I make them part of the team? Who has the right core values and also the network, so that we can like accomplish this shared mission together. And his family was from a family of very successful restaurateurs. He'd lived in like 4 or 5 different states. He was like the guy that was just like the life of the party. He's the guy that'll go talk to anybody and start telling them stories. And he leaves and he's like buddies with like every single person that was at the party. Like, it's just like, that's his vibe. And I'm not that way. Like, I'd rather just have like one long conversation with somebody in the corner of the room. And so he just has that personality, and he has a family of people with that personality who also had this like entrepreneurial success. And so with him, as I talked to him and understood more about his personality and who he knew and what we could do, it all kind of fell into place. And our first client after we like formally filed our paperwork to be a business was just some random lawyer he knew from his hometown. It was just like a random connection. So the network piece is if you don't have a network and you're like, I don't know how to go build a network, well then don't go find someone that already has one. Like and that's way easier said than done. And you're going to have to do networking yourself, which can be uncomfortable, but you got to figure out how to do that.
So if someone was looking to build their network, mainly perhaps a student, do you have any advice on how they would go about it?
No one's gonna like this advice, but I'm gonna tell it to you straight. So I'm gonna go back to my Mormon missionary days, and when you're a Mormon missionary, it's like the military. Like you wake up at 6:30 every morning, you go to bed at 10:30 every night. You have all of these like measured goals that you give yourself to try and stay productive during the day. Because when you're getting that many no's, you've got to have like a goal. And one of the goals that we set in our like group was we wanted to have 10 open your mouths was what we called them every day. And that meant you needed to go talk to 10 people every day. Oh man, it was the worst because it was just like, I'm going up and I'm like, you would have this scenario and people have been on the other side of the sidewalk probably from this. So I'm just going to like share the inside of what it's like. Like I'm walking down the sidewalk and I see someone walking and they see me and I see them and they're like, oh no, please don't talk to me. And they pull out their phone or they like start to look busy. And then we're just walking them and the gap's closing and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And they're just like, oh no, they're talking to me. And then I'm feeling uncomfortable because I know it's them. They're feeling uncomfortable, but you push through it. And what you learn is that the world is a very big place. And sometimes the stories we tell ourselves about how other people are going to perceive us, of their interest in what we're doing, is zero, and it's not. And you have to, even though it's uncomfortable, you have to learn to open your mouth. You got to learn to talk to the people around you in front of you. If you are really clear on what you want to do and what you care about, and you just talk about it, the people that have the same values or have the same interests are going to let you know about it. And you don't necessarily have to go do something crazy. You just need to go and open your mouth to the person next to you on the bus. Open up to talk to the person that's at Starbucks next to you. And it can feel intimidating, especially in a world that's less and less social. But that is where you start to build a network. And as you do that, you're going to build the entrepreneurial skills you need to actually go sell your product and talk about your product after you're really rocking and rolling. But it starts with learning how to just open your mouth, even when it feels a little bit uncomfortable.
Cool. Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Like just being able to have conversations with people. I believe like people are innately just want to see connections, be able to relate to one another. So
Mm-hmm.
if you hear something or see something, it's like, oh, I'm kind of like gravitating to that and I want to know more. I want to be there. It's kind of like when there's a conference, say there's a conference on solar energy. People interested in solar energy, they're going to go there. Someone interested in maybe like nuclear or maybe like finance, maybe they won't be too enticed to it, but like if you go there and interested in solar, you'll meet tons of people just because it's that gravity wanted to go in.
Totally, absolutely, absolutely. You just got to learn how to talk to them, and it's a lot. It's one of those things you can practice. It's a muscle, and the more you do it, the easier it's going to get.
Do you think another great way on networking would be perhaps LinkedIn or online websites?
Oh, dude, yeah, that's my bread and butter, man. Yeah, you definitely need to learn how to network on those places. So, social media is like it's a place where everybody is, and everyone's so accessible there. People that you normally could never get a foot in the door with, you absolutely can if you're willing to just message them or talk to them. And one of the strategies that I recommend to people is if you want to like get your foot in the door with a mentor, someone that can really guide you and give you their experience and apply it, go and record a video about something you've seen in a YouTube video of theirs or a lecture of theirs, post it and tag them. And like there's this funny thing where on the internet it's an attention economy, right? It's an attention economy because the way everyone makes money is who gets the most attention for better or for worse, right? And so what you can really do is if you just give someone attention for free, it's like literally handing them this like internet money. It's like, hey, here's me making you look good. Here's me getting you some engagement and some followers. And it doesn't take a lot. Where if I just make a video or post a picture and make Nelson look good, the chance of you, Nelson, going and sharing that on your Instagram stories or resharing that on LinkedIn is pretty high, right? And so that's how you can get this attention from people that maybe normally would be too busy to give it to you. And you just have to make them look good. And they in turn will want to make you look good and help you skill up and level up. It's not manipulative. It's just the way it works.
I think that's like the definition of networking. What can you give someone else?
Totally. Absolutely. And I think that, Matt, that's such a good definition. Yeah. You really like so succinct. It really is what can you give someone else? And if you approach it from that perspective of like, how can I help you? Like everything else falls into place.
So think about that impact side on what can you give. Think about Storry. Can you talk maybe a bit about like what your guys' impact is, what your goal and like big vision is focused
Yeah.
on?
So our whole thing is how do we help people share their authentic message? And there's a wide range of messages we have. We have some people that are influencers, they're YouTubers, they want to like share and entertain. That's their message, right? We've got other people that are like the heads of foundations. So there's a foundation work with called United Angels Foundation, and they help needs children with special needs like Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and their parents, and we help them share their message, which is about building community and shared challenges and shared successes and victory and so really everyone's message is different. And for us, success looks like, can we be a tool to help them share that message and amplify it? Like we just want to be a really good megaphone, like we just want to be that thing that someone can like shout into and we can authentically capture that thing they're trying to share. And so, long term, what we want to do is we want to double down on our technology. We want to create an app that not only gives people great ideas of what to create, but gives them great tools to collaborate with others, that helps them create really great content that captures what's in their head and not just maybe like getting like twisted in their tongue. And then we will have an army of video editors that go and polish that up. And so we want to really amplify some of those agency services where we customize that content and distribute that content so that creators can focus on their craft and being an expert and not necessarily being a social media expert. We don't want to, it's like, does a doctor need to be a really good social media doctor in order to know what they're talking about? Usually those are opposite, right? Like they're like, the snake oil guys. We want to be able to make it so anyone that's a true expert has all of the capabilities to be an influencer, if that's the route they want to go down, without having to learn all the ins and outs of navigating the platforms.
I love the idea, that idea of empowering others to be their best version of themselves.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you asked me what success looked like on a personal level, not just like for like Storry in and of itself, I think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and you've got, food and shelter and community and friendship. And the part that everyone likes to leave off is the very tip of the triangle, which is self-actualization. And for me, it's not just about myself, but like everyone that's part of our team, like whether you're a client of ours or working in the business, like the hope is that Storry can be this vehicle to take your career further, to take your audience and your message further, because that's what all of us are really trying to do, right? And I think we're really lucky, because our success has enabled us to be really focused on that level of the hierarchy of needs versus just food and shelter, which is kind of where we all kind of start out in the entrepreneurial world. But that's what really success looks like, I think.
Cool. Yeah, and I love how you brought up Maslow also. That's something I go back to a lot, just thinking about, oh, this is a level I'm at. Are the levels below, like, are they working well? Do I have a strong foundation? And then the next step of how do I move forward? How do I go to the next level? that
Right.
continuous improvement mindset.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And it's a journey, man. It's a totally a journey.
Cool. So on the journey, think about more product development. How can you talk a bit about like maybe different design tools you guys use to be able to build that? Like because when I think about coding and building apps, I'm thinking about like, oh, I need like HTML, the front end, back end, and honestly, like all that goes through my head. I'm not the coding guy. This us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. So I'm not a developer, but I part of my jobs have been being a product manager, and you work with engineers and help coordinate their work and understand the scope of what you're building. And one of the things that I think a lot of entrepreneurs do early on, when they, especially tech entrepreneurs that want to build tech, is they think tech is a replacement for like a product. It's like, I'll just build an app, and the app isn't the product. Like, you've got to remember, like, the app has to do something. And so what you've got to do, I think, is get really clear on what is the job to be done. It's a good product development framework of jobs to be done. What is the job to be done? And if I'm an influencer, for example, that's bringing on Story's job to be done is we need to get them a authentic feeling video posted to their social media channel. That's the job to be done. And we got to work backwards from there on the process. And before we ever built an app, we built a rigid process that was being done manually, because you cannot go and automate a process that does not exist. Technology automates a process, right? And whether that process is conceptualizing something like with OpenAI and some of their cool chat GPT stuff that's just come out, like that is ultimately rooted in a process, right? And it's a complex process, but you've got to figure out what that process is before you can ever go write a lot of code to automate it. And so as an entrepreneur, your job's got to start with, what is that process we are automating? And when you understand that, then you can say, okay, what's the MVP that we need to do? Because if the MVP for Storry was, how do we get content from a user to go edit, then so that we can go and post it, then the MVP was, okay, we need an app that lets us let people upload videos. And so that's what we built first. Here's a way to upload videos. And then it was, oh, they need an idea of what to make in the video. Okay, here's a prompt of what you can create. Oh, they need to talk to their account manager. Here's a way to chat with us. And so you just incrementally build on these features, but always focused at the end of what is the primary job that someone's trying to accomplish.
Sweet. Connor, you just hit it right on the head. And I think that's like the most important part about product development, design thinking is just breaking it down, seeing what you want come out of it at the lowest level, hit it, and then be like, okay, we're here. How do we go next? And what is next? And just building upon it over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you gotta do the whole keep it simple, stupid, right? Like we like to love to complicate it, and the problem with me, and I know a lot of other entrepreneurs, is like we want to live in the vision world. It's like, oh my god, it's gonna be so sick when we've got this feature and that feature, and then when someone has this, like it's gonna freaking break the world. The app store is gonna break because everyone's gonna be downloading this shit. Like we just like dream up this giant vision, and then you go to the developer, and the developer is just like looking at you like just glazed over eyes, like, so like, do you want to start with the login screen, and like what's the flow going to be for like the email verification? And then you're you're just like, dude, this is so in the weeds. But you've got to get in the weeds. And the reality is there are so many things, advantages to be gained by doing the weeds more effectively than everybody else. And so if you spend time there and learn those things in and out, you're going to be able to move a lot faster than if you just kind of like turned them over to somebody else completely and just crossed your fingers that they're going to get it right.
Yeah, and I can actually give you an example of like being in the weeds. Like one of the design process we have for taking a wind turbine blade design in one software and getting it um, 3D printed out. It usually takes like I think like at least an hour and a half for me, like 2 hours usually, to be able to do the process. And Connor, I'm like, when we had our last cohort of interns come in, I'm like, hey guys, this is the process. It's like 30 pages, a lot of pictures, be granted. But they all like looked at me. They were like, okay, cool, we got this. After a week, one intern came to me. He's like, Nelson, I got an idea. I'm like, okay, cool. What's your idea? And he's like, if you like hit this button instead of this button, instead of taking 90 minutes to do it, you can make it 5 if you add a couple lines of code. Yeah, so you turned something from a 2 hour long process down to 5 minutes and had no defects at all. But that's
Yeah,
only possible by having all that big processes go into it.
totally. It's so funny because like there's a reason why I know Elon's in the news very controversially at this point. So this isn't about Elon. This is about SpaceX and Tesla specifically. One of the reasons that they like seem to innovate, like SpaceX, let's just use them as the example because I think there's cleaner comparisons. If you look at other companies that are trying to do like satellite launches and similar things, they seem to be taking a lot longer than SpaceX. Part of that's because SpaceX got started earlier. The other part of it is SpaceX is willing to go blow up more rockets, right? Like they launch more stuff. And I think the principle there is you learn lessons when you are actually putting stuff out and building a process and iterating versus endless hypothesizing. And it's very easy as an entrepreneur to get stuck in that daydream world. But you built out the process with the interns, they started working on it. And you weren't going to figure out that efficiency gain until you actually were in the weeds of building out the processes, right? And so it's like you've got to start working and gaining momentum before you can even find the places where you can gain those efficiency pieces and get those iterative improvements. And that's where it all is in product development. You learn by playing the game, not by thinking about the game.
Yeah, and like just going to SpaceX about like actually doing it, like you can't really simulate, oh, the actual launch day. Like there's so many things going on, like you can only learn from doing it. Now, granted, it costs quite a bit to go through that entire process of building a spaceship and launch it to fail, but
No, dude, you take what you do is you take a soda bottle and you just put some Mentos in there. And, no, totally. You gotta have an MVP. Like ultimately, it's and and that's why an MVP is so important, right? It's like you can't afford not all of us are billionaires that could just say, let's go like light up a bunch of rockets to blow up. So like we got to get really clear what's the job we're trying to accomplish and focus those MVPs, those minimum viable products, viability being defined as the minimum amount of thing we need to build in order to accomplish the job that needs to be done. And if you get really clear on that, well, then you're going to end up being able to iterate a lot more efficiently versus build the full stack and then iterate because you're going to have little pieces of everything that needs to be iterated on. So if you're iterating on a budget, if we don't got Bezos wallet money, then what we got to do is we've got to say, okay, what is the smallest thing we can build so we can micro iterate on that little piece and then focus on building the next thing.
yep. The thing about like prototyping, do you have any like favorite like methods for prototyping, like sketching it out, storyboards?
Yeah, so I'm a visual guy, and so I love doing flowcharts and UX designs. So Figma, great tool. They've got a free subscription that you can use. Diagrams.net is another free flowchart tool. Just connects to a Google Drive account, and you can do flowcharts in there. And then I love Zapier and make.com especially. And those are great no code tools where if you've got data in a Google Sheet and you need it to populate somewhere else or send you a push notification or do some sort of action, you can kind of connect a bunch of different tools and software together so that you can kind of automate things that normally you'd have to rely on a developer on, where instead of them going and building a database stored in the cloud somewhere, you can just make your database a Google Sheet, and let that kind of be your back end for whatever kind of experience you're trying to build. And so I think make.com, Zapier, if this then that, which is the budget version of Zapier and make.com, IFTT, and then Figma for sure, diagrams.net for sure. Those are all really great low code, no code free tools.
Sweet. And for everyone listening, we'll have that in the episode's description. So if you want a quick link to those, just check out the description. Cool. So Connor, as we begin coming towards today's episode, there's one area I did want to talk about. Do you have any advice for university students out there right now listening?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is there's always a ton of pressure to figure out what you want to do and like get rocking at it and take a deep breath. Like I mean, after I was done with school, I dicked around and traveled and tried a bunch of things. And I think that was the right move. Like, you got to kind of taste a lot so you know really what you want. And some people figure that out early. Like, some people are like, they're in their freshman year and they're like, I'm going to go and like do this thing. And that's awesome. And if you're not that person, but you want to be, don't feel guilty about that. Just embrace the fact that you're in this taste the world phase, and let that be refining experiences for you on getting really clear what you want. And then once you are clear on what you want, I would write it down. Like, write it down, put it on a document, and look at it regularly. Like, in the business world, we have our what we want to do as a group, our mission put down on paper, and we talk about it every quarter. And that's what our quarterly planning is. It's about getting reoriented on what our purpose is. And when it's not work and it's personal, or if you're a team of one, it's harder to hold yourself accountable to doing that. But I think finding some way to like regularly revisit what your motivation is and what your why is a powerful way for you to like kind of check in with yourself about where you want to go. So I would say give yourself some breathing room to figure out what you want. And then once you figure out what you want, come back to that regularly so that you can make sure you're orienting the actions you're taking day to day around it.
If there's something that you could have changed in your time during university, what would it have been?
Oof, that's a great question. If I could change something, I think what I would have do is I probably would spend a lot more time networking. Like, I think I would have gone to more activities, more events, participated in more group stuff. Like, I think that that's one thing I didn't do a whole lot of. I think I kind of like stuck within my major and stuck within like my circle of friends. And like, well, that was fun and awesome. Now I just feel like some of those people that I met have been invaluable connections for like goals and shared things that we want to do. And I wish that was like a bigger circle for me. So that's one thing I think I would have done differently.
Cool, sweet. Yeah, definitely. I know, like during my time, I tried my best to get out there and meet new people. Definitely did that much more in like I would say my first 2 years, and then the last 2 years kind of like stuck with a small group.
Mm-hmm.
So got best of both worlds, but meeting people always a good time.
Always a good time.
Okay, so coming towards the end of today's episode, Connor, do you have any final words for the audience or a summary on what we talked about?
I think the only thing I'd say is just, keep at it. If you're interested in learning more about Storry, storry.co with 2 Y's, STORYY.co. And we also give a free video edit for any of our new people. So if you're wanting to be a creator or like wanting to build that personal brand or wanting to shout out a thank you to a professor so they give you a good grade, go ahead and like jump on our app, record a video, and we'll make something cool and custom for you. But other than that, no, I just appreciate you having me on, Nelson, and being able to spend some time chatting with you.
Sweet. Thank you again for coming on the show. I enjoyed our conversation. I always love talking about entrepreneurship and topics that I know about, but then hearing it from others, like how you brought up like Maslow, needs hierarchy of needs, talking about grid, talking about motivation, that intrinsic side of it all. I can talk about that all day long.
Cool. Dude, well, me too. I'm glad we could do it today.
Sweet. Okay. So for everyone listening here today, definitely take a look in the description, find links to Storry, to different tools online, and folks, remember to stay sustainable.